Folks, it is Tailback Tuesday on the podcast daily. The state of the position groups, units. I don't know. Didn't even come up with a great name for it. Rolls along as we get into July here and the final countdown towards training camp. That is Bill Landis. I am Austin Ward, and things seem pretty good at the top for Ohio State, and then a little bit dicier. Maybe that's not the right word. How should we put it, Bill?
It's not. I don't think it's dicey. Because I think it's really good talent on hand. It's just like are the numbers correct? I'll ask you this: 1 to 10, 1 being the least surprised, 10 being the most surprised. Where are you on the fact that they did not add another running back in the post spring portal?
I would say I was like a 2.
Yeah.
And part of it are the things that you have already mentioned, and you did when we checked in with Ryan Day 2 weeks ago. It's like, how are you going to pitch to somebody? Because what you'd be looking for is a veteran, like someone who has proven that they can play at the highest level, and they've probably started somewhere else. I don't know. Let's just use UMass for an example. Someone who's started, who has considered like going to the NFL draft. Like, would you, sir, like to come be the clear third option behind Quinshon, Judkins, and TreVeyon Henderson? Like, there may even be some NIL reward in it for you, but that's the situation. You're looking at probably 100-ish carries that Ohio State would be trying to fill there. And I don't think that there are a lot of people who would sign up for that. Now, I kind of wish that maybe they had the foresight and said, well, if that's going to be the cost of business, maybe pay that to Chip Trainum and keep him around. So I was low because I didn't think when Dallin Hayden left that Ohio State was going to succeed or make all that strong of an effort to go get one. So maybe I'm lower than other people on that, but I just thought it was going to be like that wasn't the time to do it, and there wasn't going to be an option that really fit the bill.
Yeah, I'm probably like a 4, so like I'm pretty low too, only because I like agree with you. The sales pitch would have been pretty difficult, and even like the kid from UMass who like randomly got a crystal ball to Ohio State on 24/7 Sports like in the middle of spring practice, but like I don't think we ever really like actually heard much about that. It was kind of a random projection, and obviously it never came to fruition. And that was a player who like had been fairly productive. If you're trying to sell the number 2 running back spot, like I could see that. I know the last time we talked about this, Byrne mentioned the name Penny Boone, kid from Detroit who is Maryland, Toledo, briefly at Louisville, and is now at UCF. Like, would have been awesome to add a guy like that, but like he went to UCF to be like part of a tailback tandem. Like he was being a part of a tailback trio just doesn't seem like something that would actually be all that compelling, because it's just hard to play 3 guys that much. You can play 3, but like someone's going to get the short end of the stick there. And I think anyone coming in behind Quinshon, Judkins, and TreVeyon Henderson would definitely be in that position. So I'm not shocked, and I think it's probably okay that they didn't add anybody. It's just like I don't know. It's almost like a Ohio State specific mild concern, because we've seen seasons recently here where they have needed multiple running backs to get through the year. And like Quinshon Judkins, knock on wood, has been an adorable player, and TreVeyon Henderson looked very good at the end of last season. And hopefully all his kind of injury stuff is behind him, / he'll be helped this year by not having to carry, all the load by himself. So I think they're fine. And I don't really even have many concerns about having to play a freshman if it came to that, because I think this is sort of the one position or a position where you can do that and be reasonably confident that a freshman can contribute early. I think it's just sort of the nature of the running back position. So I really like the 4 they have. And I love the top 2. Obviously the top 2 are awesome. It's just that question's always going to be in the back of my mind. Like, do you have enough bodies? But maybe that's something silly to be concerned about until it happens. So
I like the way you put that. Like, it is really such an Ohio State specific centric issue to have, where we could spend 25 minutes talking about how great Quinshon Judkins and TreVeyon Henderson are. We saw a lot in the spring from Sam Williams-Dixon and James Peoples to get excited about. Like, and that's, I think, where almost every program in the country would be putting their attention. And I'm sitting here being like, man, Was Chip Trayanum secretly the biggest loss of the offseason for Ohio State? Like,
oh, that's a good question. Yeah,
and I
probably.
think I've really talked myself into it while you were describing the situation. Like, but if that's where your attention has to go, like, which I do think, I don't want to minimize it, and I'm trying not to maximize it. Like, they can play if they don't have any health issues. You knock on wood. They're not going to have any problem alternating 1 and 2 with those reps at the top, and then sprinkling in the young guys plus TC Caffey. Plus, they're going to be using almost certainly Emeka Ibuka as a threat a couple times a game. Potentially Brandon Ennis, the same deal. And you have Will Howard, Devin Brown, Lincoln Keenholz, who could all run at quarterback. Like, this is not a situation where even if they had injuries that they would be in a real world of hurt, in my opinion. But we've also seen Ohio State go through this multiple years in a row where you put on so much wear and tear, especially in a Big Ten schedule, especially now if you're going to be playing 16 times, potentially to win a national championship. 17 could be like, it seems pretty unlikely that you're going to get through totally unscathed. And that's where someone who could play a role as specific and niche as it might have been, like Chip Trayanum, like, I would have felt so much more comfortable about the depth of Ohio State's running backs if he was there as the third guy still.
Yeah, so would I, but I also understand kind of not wanting to be that guy, right? If you think you're someone who can take on more of a workload than that, then I don't fault Chip for kind of wanting to look around and seeing if there was that opportunity out there for him. We'll see if he went to Kentucky, right? We'll see if he gets that opportunity there. I'm sure he'll have more carries there than he would have had here. There would have been peace of mind for sure, or more peace of mind. My mind's pretty peaceful with this position, but if there's any gap at all in 100% serenity, I guess it's that. But the thing about it's like, yeah, if Ohio State has to get down to its third and fourth running back, they're going to be perhaps in some shaky territory. But like, show me a team that's not true, right? It's like,
well, we didn't even mention the newest member of the running back room.
I was wondering if we were going to dare say Caleb Downs' name in this episode. People, the reaction to that was interesting. That I saw on social media. I thought it was like interesting and exciting because I didn't take it as like Caleb Downs as our third running back, but it seems like that was the reaction. My read on that was like, we might give Caleb Downs the ball 3 times during the season. I was like, that sounds cool. Maybe he'll score a touchdown or 2, but everyone, I don't know, not everyone, but a lot of the reactions seem to be different than that. So I hesitate to bring it up because I don't want to make people upset.
Well, we can talk about it again. I mean, he is not getting more than a couple reps at running back, and they're only going to put in a few specific plays. He has a lot on his plate at safety. Like, I don't want to waste too much time because there are full-time running backs that we can discuss who are very, very good. I thought that it goes back to what you mentioned right off the top, Bill, which is, are the numbers where they want him to be? And Ryan Day bringing that up unprompted out of the blue in June tells you that if Caleb Downs is getting running back meeting time, that they don't feel like they are totally comfortable, that they thought they were going to have 5 scholarship running backs plus TC Caffey, and they don't. So if they have to put in a break glass in case of emergency situation, there are certainly way worse options than Caleb Downs, but that it's not going to be, let's try it in the first couple weeks of the season and see if there's potential there. No, I think that would be, if they get the injuries at the top and you're about to make a playoff run, what would you do? You have at least put in some element of preparation to find a solution, borrowing from another position, which, by the way, bringing this back, it's callback. Chip Trayanum did that 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's like, it reminds me of like in 2014 when after JT went down, I think we asked Urban, like, who's your backup quarterback? And it's like Jalen Marshall. It's like, Jalen Marshall's not going to play quarterback unless we absolutely need him to, which would have been fun. I don't know. I find myself wondering sometimes what that could have looked like.
I remember saying this. I'm kind of glad that we brought it up. I hope Chip Trayanum's enjoying this episode, but I remember in the summer, the same thing happened 2 years ago where like Chip had a very good spring at linebacker. Ohio State was excited about it, but they started thinking about the depth, and Chip Trayanum was doing some things in training camp where it's like he's already potentially ready to, I'm like, and I was saying then it's not going to happen. Chip Trayanum is bought into playing linebacker. He's not going to move over. He's happy, content. That's where his NFL future is. But they had done the work so that when they actually wound up in a spot like that in November, like they weren't starting over from scratch. And Chip Trayanum had already had running back experience at Arizona State. So like that's very different than the Caleb Downs discussion. I get that. But at least there are some similarities to that where you can do some of this stuff just as because it's summer, you can experiment a little and it might have value and it might not. We'll see.
Well, I think Caleb Downs merely being in meetings has value because why not allow your safety to get that kind of perspective, right? Even if it never leads to anything on the field offensively, I think him learning about more football from the other side of the ball could be beneficial to him. He already knows so much about the game anyway. It's almost like he knows everything he needs to know about defense. Let's flip over to the other side and get a degree in offense as well. So we'll see. Like they have to go through at least 4 players, I think, to get to the point where they were giving Caleb Downs any kind of significant work at running back. Otherwise, I think it'll be a gadget play here, a gadget play there. Maybe see if he can't get him into the end zone once or twice. But the 4 they have ahead of him, and even it's quite possible they would even look at a receiver like Emeka Ibuka or Brandon Ennis before they got to Caleb Downs. So now you're talking about getting through 6 players before he got to Caleb. So it
Right.
feels a little silly almost talking about that contingency plan. I think it's less of a contingency plan and more of like a, let's maybe try to have some fun with a really good football player if the opportunity presents itself. But it's not like it's not based off like some, half-brained idea, right? Like Caleb Downs was a really good running back in high school. Like he's excellent with the ball in his hands. So that they would have that thought in their head is not surprising to me. But I am inclined to believe that they'll be just fine with the 4 running backs they have in the room currently, plus TC Caffey.
All right, that was a lot of foolishness. Not looking one person who's not here and one person who's the starting safety. So
that's right.
We can probably talk about the fact that Quinshon, Judkins, and TreVeyon Henderson are very good at football.
They are both very good at football. Again, like broken record, I just think they complement each other incredibly well. I very much like almost don't care who gets more carries. I can see that being probably a popular topic of conversation in camp. And when we talk with Carlos Locklyn, I'm very excited to see how Carlos Locklyn reacts to that line of questioning. But I really I don't think it matters all that much. What matters to me is they are both healthy and available for the duration of the season, so that you have those 2 guys to rely on when you're trying to make a playoff run. And I love the situation for TreVeyon. I hope the fact that another running back of Quinshon Judkins' talent be on hand. I hope that allows more opportunity to get TreVeyon involved as a receiver, or just plays like kind of get him out into space more than just being like a downhill running back all the time. And I really like what Quinshon Judkins can provide the team in a few areas, but specifically like in the red zone. One of the things I had in the story that I wrote on Rivals was that Ohio State only had 14 red zone rushing touchdowns last year, which is a pretty low number. And Quinshon Judkins is like a one-man fix to that. He has been top 5 in the country the last 2 years with red zone rushing touchdowns. He had 15 last year, which was one more than Ohio State had as a team, and 14 2 years ago, which is the same number that Ohio State had as a team last year. So like that's an obvious area, like short yardage, red zone, finishing drives is an obvious area where Ohio State needs to get better. And I don't think is necessarily a strength of TreVeyon's. He does a lot of things really well. I just don't think that that's one of them. But Quinshon is a big, powerful back, certainly does that pretty well. And I'm excited to see what that can unlock for this offense.
Yeah. TreVeyon is, I think, a lot more likely to hit the home run for you. I'm thinking about the Notre Dame touchdown run last year. That's the strength of his game and pulling away from defenders. And like, it's a cliche, but if you have a thunder lightning 1-2 punch, like I'll enjoy watching that for sure. I've got no issue with the setup like that. I think that's probably what favors Quinshon Judkins to lead Ohio State in carries. That would be if we had to put down, units in the summer. I think that Quinshon will finish with more carries for Ohio State, but I am not ruling out the chance that explosive ability for TreVeyon Henderson lets him maybe finish with more yards overall. And maybe that will be, like you said, maybe that becomes an all-purpose yardage conversation where they throw to him a little bit more. He has been, and a lot of Ohio State running backs have been so deadly when they've been used in the screen game. And J.K. Dobbins, you've seen some of those plays in the past. Like, it's another part of the offense as a whole that I just feel like has maybe been underutilized, as we've talked about Ohio State getting into like some predictable play calling over the last couple of years, and maybe Chip Kelly can shake out of that. Maybe Ryan Day just being removed a little bit will get him back into play calling and aggressiveness that he has maybe lacked a little bit in some of the big games in the last couple of years. That's a part where I think there's just a lot more room for Ohio State to grow. I thought they were going to maybe do some of that with Dallin Hayden as well, but that didn't transpire. There's reasons that Ohio State coaching staff had to do that and not do that, but this is the situation that they're in now. So I think that maybe yards per carry for TreVeyon are more likely to be higher, and then the carries total for Quinshon, especially when you get down to inside the 20, 3rd and 1. I think that he's going to be a real hammer with that situation, and he's proven very successful against SEC defenses doing that the last 2 years.
Yeah, I am. I'm pretty excited about the potential, like some of the schematic potential here, because Chip Kelly at Oregon and Chip Kelly at UCLA, I just think had to take the approach of maximizing what his players were able to do, kind of like a whole hog approach, I guess. Like do everything possible. Make sure you're wringing every ounce of potential out of this thing. Whereas I don't know that Ohio State has always had that mindset, because most weeks they line up and they're just kind of more talented than you, right? And I don't think Chip is going to suddenly change into or morph into that mindset. So I think there's a pretty strong chance that we see TreVeyon and Quinshon on the field together, stuff with multiple backs, stuff with getting a little more creative with TreVeyon in the passing game, whether that's screens or otherwise. Just the combination of the talent at the skill positions with an offensive coordinator who has nothing else to think about other than all the different ways you can use these pieces, has me really excited for what it could look like. And if it doesn't look tremendously different, it's still going to be good. But I think it has. I think we have a very strong possibility of not only a very talented offense, but maybe the most creative offense we've seen from Ohio State when you combine Ryan Day's passing game design ability with Chip Kelly's run game design ability. It could be pretty freaking awesome with these players they have.
I'm definitely bringing a large bucket of popcorn for running back availability day in August. So when Carlos Locklyn gets a real introduction to the Ohio State media and is hey, who's getting the most carries on this team? What do you think about riding the hot hand? What about a rotation? Now Tony Alford was entertaining for that too, but I knew what the answer was going to be because we heard about the crystal ball year after year after year. So we're getting something new to listen to, and Carlos Locklyn's already proven, not just in one interview setting at Ohio State, but throughout some viral clips previously at Oregon and before that I bet his answer is going to be wildly entertaining.
Yeah, he's got some creative turns of phrase. Carlos Locklyn. He's got a good way of talking. I like Carlos Locklyn and some of the ways he chooses to kind of articulate his ideas, whether directly or cryptically, as we've seen on Twitter sometimes. So that'll be appointment watching, I think, on Carlos Locklyn interview day.
He was dropping some social media clues about what they wanted to do with that running back group. They got made a couple moves already this offseason. Bo Jackson kicked that off for Ohio State earlier in June, but clearly you look ahead to 2025 and having James Peoples and Sam Williams-Dixon as a start, but you have to assume that a lot of turnover is coming with both Quinshon, Judkins, and TreVeyon Henderson both likely leaving. So seems pretty critical. And Carlos Locklyn's not really hiding it that they need a 3-man running back class.
Yeah, whatever that looks like, right? It could be maybe it's 2 high schoolers and then a transfer. Maybe it's just 3 high schoolers. I think they ideally want 5. They're not going to have 5 this year, but I think in 1 year that's okay. The thing that screams for me is like James Peoples and Sam Williams-Dixon like have to play this year. I'm not saying like take carries away from Quinshon and TreVeyon, but when those games get to the point where you are comfortable, and maybe even need to stretch maybe what comfortable is there, like you can't go into 2025 like not knowing what you have in James Peoples and Sam Williams-Dixon, because your room as we sit here right now is almost certainly going to be 2 second-year backs and probably 3 freshmen. Because TreVeyon's out of eligibility, and if Quinshon Judkins isn't in the NFL next fall, I'd be pretty shocked by that. So it's going to be a really young, inexperienced room. You have to get the 2 guys that are on your roster now on the field this fall, so that you're not going into 2025 with a room that is totally green. So, and I think they will. I guess that's maybe one thing we don't know about Carlos Locklyn just yet, as like Ryan Day allows his position coaches to handle those kind of personnel decisions. Like how willing will Carlos Locklyn be to throw a young guy out there this season? But I do think maybe quarterback aside, it's probably the position where that's most important is getting those young guys on the field in some capacity this fall.
Well, we're about a month away from the opportunity to start asking those questions to Carlos Locklyn and the Buckeyes as the State of the Position Groups series rolls along. It is going to take a break for the rest of this week. Both Bill and myself, and maybe we can convince Berm to take some days off, we're going to do something we've never done. And with the 4th of July coming this week, this will be the last episode of the Podcast Daily, barring something catastrophic, knock on wood. We are going to close up shop for a couple days and let these 2 episodes marinate with you for a little bit, and then come back after the holiday. And then things will really pick up steam with Big Ten Media Days coming in a couple weeks and camp season. The coaches are on vacation. The players get a little bit of a break. We thought, hey, maybe we'll take one for the first time and see how it goes. And if you hate it, let us know. But if you love it, we love you. So thanks so much for understanding and bearing with us. We'll be back to finish up the rest of the position series starting on Monday of next week. Hope you have a safe and happy 4th of July from all of us here at the Podcast Daily. He's Bill Landis. I'm Austin Ward. We'll talk to you next week.